Welcome to Diane's Patisserie. I'm Diane Nussbaum, the executive pastry chef of Diane's Patisserie. I've been baking in my home, started in my home in 1981, and have been baking ever since. And I decided that it's time to give everyone some of the knowledge that I've learned over the many years and easy things for you to do at home that are delicious and beautiful. So today we're going to be making a white velvet layer cake that is made with all egg whites instead of a full egg, so the batter inside is much more white. And we're going to be filling it with some marinated strawberries that are marinated in lemon and sugar, which make them very delicious, and a couple of strawberry fans to decorate the top. And we're using also inside an Italian meringue buttercream, which we're in the process of starting right now. So to make the Italian meringue buttercream, you need to put egg whites in a very clean bowl, adding some sugar to the egg whites, letting them mix about 10 minutes while we're caramelizing or cooking our granulated sugar 240 degrees, which is the softball stage of sugar. And you should use an instant read thermometer to help you get to the temperature that you're looking for. So it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get the sugar to the correct temperature. It seems like it takes forever, and then the last few degrees go very, very fast, and you have to be prepared. So what we've done is put our sugar in the pot, and we've covered the pot with aluminum foil so that none of the sugar crystals stick to the side of your pan, which can make the sugar caramelize in your pan, and we don't want that to happen. So right now we've turned the sugar on, and we're already at 215 degrees, and it's boiling gently. It will get to the regular temperature, to the temperature you're looking for, when the bubbles are very close together. So even if you don't have an instant read thermometer, you can kind of tell within 10 to 15 minutes whether or not the sugar is going to be at the right temperature. So over here, we're beating our egg whites to a very soft meringue, because once the sugar comes to the right temperature, we're going to be pouring the hot sugar into the egg whites and beating it until it cools. Once it cools, then we're going to be adding all of our butter, some shortening, and some confectionery sugar. And that's what makes this Italian meringue buttercream so delicious. And we're also going to be flavoring it this time with some fresh lemon juice and some fresh lemon rind. So while we're waiting for our sugar to come to the right temperature, I'm going to check one more time. And see where we are. It's getting up there. It's not quite there yet, I can tell from the bubbles. The other way to judge, if you don't have a candy thermometer, and they're great to have and they're not that expensive, if you take a scoop of this boiling sugar and dip it into a glass of ice, if you can form a little soft ball of sugar, then you're at the right temperature. That's why it's called the softball stage. So that's how you can tell even if you don't have a thermometer. We're not there yet, so we're going to go on and start our cake batter. So we'll just take this off of our mixer for the moment. And for our white velvet cake, this is a very easy batter to get together. It's almost too simple. So if, like me, you can't make your butter soft quickly enough for this recipe, I recommend that you beat it up first. So we're putting 6 ounces of softened butter in our mixer. And while that's mixing, we have mixed together 3 cups of our cake flour, 1½ cups of sugar, a tablespoon plus a teaspoon of baking powder, and salt. And once this gets soft, we're going to be putting all of that in here. And in our measuring cup here, we have 1 cup of milk, we have egg whites that are at room temperature, and we have a little vanilla. We're going to be adding a little bit of this milk mixture to the flour mixture to moisten it. Then we're going to be adding all the rest of this into the flour mixture and all of the rest of the milk. So I see our butter is looking good. Just going to make it nice and slow, because we don't want the flour to go all over the place. So I'm gently adding it in. So this is basically like a two-step cake process, which is very, very simple. And it comes out great. It's very moist. It's very easy to do. And I've made, out of this batter, I made 3 6-inch cakes. But today we're going to be making 2 8-inch cakes. We'll be actually baking 2 8-inch cakes. And of course, we always want you to have your oven preheated to 350 degrees. So all the flour's in. I'm going to add enough of this milk mixture to moisten this. And then we're going to add all the rest of this right in here. And let it beat at a moderate speed for a minute or two. And while that's beating and getting nice and well combined, we're going to check on our sugar. So our sugar is at 220, not quite ready yet, but the bubbles are forming. So we're almost there. We're going to be there shortly. You just never know how fast it's going to go. So you have to really keep an eye on it. And I like to make a little top of aluminum foil so I can stick the thermometer in without burning myself. So just to press this down, and then let's take another reading. Because this sugar is very hot and you do have to be very careful. You don't want to be distracted when you're working with sugar. You need to be very, very careful. These instant read thermometers cannot stay in the hot sugar the whole time. You have to take them out, let them cool down, and then put them back in. But you can get a regular candy thermometer, which you can leave in the pot to see where it's at. We're not quite there yet. I can tell from the bubbles. But we'll see for a minute. I'm going to let that go for another couple minutes while we put our cake batter into our cake pans. So I have sprayed them, and I used parchment paper in the bottom to help get it out of the pan much more easily. So let's just pan our cakes. Let's move all of this away. And we use this, this exact cake batter for a wedding cake when the person could not have any soy. So if you're just using regular milk, this is great for somebody who has a soy allergy. But if somebody doesn't want dairy, you can also make this cake with margarine and almond milk or coconut milk. There are lots of options in today's world to be able to accommodate everybody's needs. And I haven't tried it yet, but you might even be able to make this with gluten-free flour like King Arthur, cup for cup. Let's clean this off pretty well. And when I'm putting it into the pans, I just kind of eyeball it to make sure they're even as much as possible. And this bakes about 25 minutes or so. So I kind of go back and forth between my 2 pans, a scoop for each one. And I always scoop it from the bottom to make sure that it's well blended on the bottom of the pan as well. The other little trick that I've learned over the years is when you're baking a cake, scoop the center away from the middle to the outside of your pan, because in the oven, the edges bake before the center. So if you want to have a nice flat cake, make your edges higher in the baking pan than the center. And I've used regular brown vanilla, but there is a white vanilla, so you can use that if you want it to be even whiter. Okay, looks very good. Let's put it in the oven. So while we're waiting for this to get ready, what we do is we make sure that we cut our butter into small pieces, measure that out. We get our confectionery sugar gets sifted, and also some sort of shortening, because this helps make the buttercream a little bit stronger. It doesn't take away from the flavor in any way, but it helps if you're using this for a wedding cake or any kind of special occasion cake that might be sitting out for a longer period of time. So we need to go back and check on our temperature, and we'll clean this up. So this is what happens when you have a lot of flour that's going into your bowl. It just takes a little bit of time to clean it up. So now the sugar is at 240 degrees. I'm going to pour it along the side of the bowl. You want to avoid your beater as much as possible until it's all in. And once it's in, you can turn the speed up to a little bit higher speed. So it's very hot. You can feel the bottom of the bowl is very hot, and we have to wait for it to cool because everything is about temperature. So if you try to put your butter in too soon, it's going to melt, and then you'll have a very drippy buttercream, which we don't want. So I'm just going to get rid of these other bowls because now we're going to start decorating our cake. Even though one is baking, one is finished, and this buttercream's not quite ready, we have a buttercream already made so that we can proceed so that you can see the full decoration. So I baked this cake actually a couple days ago, and you're going to see how moist it is. It's just fine. I wrapped it in saran wrap to keep it nice and moist. We're going to just trim the top off a little bit. And you'll be able to see that the texture is really beautiful. Then we're going to cut it in half, so we go trimming around a little bit into the cake, all the way around and then through the center. And then we have our buttercream that we've already made. And I like to put a little bit of buttercream just on my pan to hold it in place. And that's the flat side, so you're going to be able to get a much better straight cake when you finish, even though I don't want to cut off all this extra beautiful part of the cake. I leave it there because we can fill it in with buttercream. So we're taking our Italian meringue buttercream. So I'm smoothing out some of the buttercream. And this is the time when you can flavor it with orange, with lemon, however you like, or just keep it plain vanilla. I mean, plenty of people love plain vanilla. And I also like to put some of the buttercream on the top side before I add my strawberries. So this buttercream on the inside here helps to hold your strawberries or whatever fruit you're using in place. So I've already cut the strawberries. We're going to put them on here in a nice way. Pile them on as well as we can so you get plenty of strawberries inside. And I actually have a lavender plant at home, and I took some of the seeds from my lavender plant and put it in my sugar, so now I have kind of a lavender flavored sugar, which is something a little bit different. I know a lot of people do really love lavender. You can sift out the little seeds if you like, or leave them. Putting this on top. Now I'm going to use my pastry bag to put the sugar, the buttercream onto the cake. And if you wanted to make a simple syrup, what we consider a simple syrup, you're going to cook equal parts of sugar and water in a pot on your stove for 3 minutes. Let it cool, and then you can use it to moisten your cakes as you need it. So we use it all the time in the bakery because we find, especially for wedding cakes and things like that, that it really helps to keep the moisture in when a cake is sitting out for many hours. And this is a great way to put icing on a cake. It makes it very easy, and you can get a really good even coat of buttercream. So I start in the middle to seal in all of our great strawberries. And go around all the edges. And when you're decorating a cake, you use more buttercream than you need. You put it on and then you take it off to make it smooth. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm going to check on our buttercream here. So it's feeling warm but not hot. So I am going to start putting the butter in because you want the butter to get soft when it gets into the buttercream. So piece by piece you can kind of squeeze it, put it in. But it's a slower process. You want each piece to kind of get absorbed as you add the next. And this butter is fairly room temperature, but it's a little bit cold because it's been so cold outside. So you can have your kids help you with this too. So especially the younger kids really enjoy doing things like this to help in the kitchen. So it's very good to have a heavy-duty mixer to make this type of buttercream. It's very hard to do it with a stand mixer. I don't think that you really would be able to. So this is a commercial shortening that we use in the bakery, but you can use a Crisco, or you can just use all butter. I mean, if you're not needing to keep your cake on display for any length of time, you're just using it for one party, you don't have to even use any shortening if you don't want to. It's starting to get thick and come together. It's looking very good. So just stop it for a minute so you can see what it looks like. It looks kind of a little curdled at this moment, but don't get worried. It's the way it's supposed to look. It's going to all come together as we put in the confectionery sugar and as we beat it a little bit longer and a little slower. I know when I first started making this buttercream, I was like, oh my God, something's wrong. I did something wrong, but no, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just the way it looks in the beginning when you first start adding all of the ingredients in there. Now we'll add the confectionery sugar a little at a time. You can either sift or not sift this confectionery sugar. It really ends up being very smooth in the end, even if you haven't sifted it. And usually the confectionery sugar that you get in the bags are pretty well sifted. They're not too bad. Also, if you choose, this is a time that you could add some vanilla or any kind of flavoring that you might like, some almond extract. If you're doing a cake that has an alcoholic syrup, you could put some of that alcohol in here, like a Grand Marnier, or if you're making an orange flavored cake. Just give it a minute to all come together. So you can see we have a really lovely buttercream. Just gonna give it a good mix with my spatula. And this buttercream keeps very well. If you keep it in the refrigerator, you can make it ahead and keep it for several weeks. People have told me that they've even frozen it. If you bake a lot, you can feel free to leave it in your refrigerator for even a month and it will be fine. As long as you put it in a well-sealed container, because it's a lot of work to make this, and so you might not want to make it every time you're making a cake, but it also depends on the size of your mixer, how much you can do at one time. So this looks just great. So I'll show you. It's nice and thick, nice and smooth. So now we can finish decorating our cake. I'm going to get a special tip to decorate our cake. All right, I think we're good to go. So we will continue adding the buttercream around the sides. Now the one thing I will say, when you're decorating a cake like this, you should put it in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes to get it hard, the buttercream firm, so that it's much easier to decorate it. So it's a little more challenging to do it in a warm room with a freshly made buttercream and a freshly made cake. And people sometimes are worried that if they make their cake too far in advance, it won't be fresh. That is not true. The cake will be just fine, and you will not be having a lot of aggravation trying to decorate it. So in today's world, a lot of brides like these almost naked cakes, and it looks like this is going to be an almost naked cake today, because it's hard to get this buttercream on here evenly, but it will still be delicious, and we can still decorate the top. Just trying to get it as nice and even as possible. So while I'm making some decorations for the top, I am going to put it in the refrigerator for just a few minutes to see if we can get a little nicer finish on here. So the decoration that I used on this particular cake is pink. Right now I got some white fondant and some red fondant, and I'm marbleizing them together to make the decoration for the cake that we're working on right now while our cake is chilling. So I'm just kind of making it soft, and I try and use a little bit of shortening to keep it moist. I have a little silpat, but you can use a smooth placemat to roll your fondant out on. And you can buy small portions of fondant in Michael's, probably on Amazon as well. So I thought it was kind of fun to do a couple different circles. People are doing decorations with little balls on cakes, and this is a little bit more simple. So you can see there's just an interesting pattern on here, not anything too complicated. And you can use whatever colors you might want to use that the person, or if it's a birthday, the person's favorite colors. And I just have a bunch of round rings, just cutting some circles, and then a little baby one, maybe 2 of those. And then you have some fondant left over. So you can see that I made a rose on our cake, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So we'll just put these away. And if you don't have cutters that are round, you can use a glass. You can use anything in your kitchen that will make an impression on your fondant. So you don't have to go out and buy a lot of materials. You can use plenty of things that you have at your disposal at home. So to make the rose, I'm just rolling out the fondant in a long snake and cutting it into little pieces. And so for the center of the rose, take the first one, make a nice little ball out of it, roll it so that you get a little point. So that's the center of the rose. And each one of these is going to be a petal of the rose. So I'm just going to put the center down. And now with my fingers, I'm just making it round, making the top smooth, making the top a little thinner than the bottom, and rolling it over my thumb to give it some size. So we're going to put that on and wrap it around our center and kind of press it back to give it some life. And we're going to continue in this way. So first we do 1, which is the center, then we do 2 around my thumb, make it thin, and it pretty much sticks. You can use a little water if it's giving you a hard time. Now we're going to do 3 petals, and depending upon how big you want your rose to be or how many petals you're going to do. So the next one is going to go in between where the first 2 met. Give it some life. And again, in between where the other petals met. And you can continue in this way with, then you would do 5 petals. We're going to stop here to put it on our cake in just a minute. Then we're going to make a couple leaves to put on, even in the same color as the flower, which is not normal, but it's cake, so we can do whatever we want. And we're going to roll it out into a nice little square. Nothing complicated. Maybe a little thicker than the pieces were before. And it doesn't even have to be a perfect square, but I will make it a little bit more square. And I'm going to cut it into 2 triangles. Each one of these is going to be a leaf. So then with my knife, I'm going to make some marks to make it look like a leaf on each one. So you can see the indents of the leaf. I'm going to just pinch it at the base, and then when we get ready, we're going to put it on our cake. And people will be so impressed when you do something like this. And look how easy this is. I mean, it's very simple. So let's see if our cake is cool enough for us to add some more decoration to it and get it looking a little more pretty, because we like to make everything pretty. Let's move this off to the side. The most fun part, I'm sure you'll agree, as you get better with your cake decorating. So it's feeling a little colder, it's feeling a little better. Okay, so the refrigeration really did help. You can see I'm able to get the buttercream on here much more easily. So it's definitely worth it to put a coat, what we consider a crumb coat, on your cake. Don't be frustrated. Put it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes to an hour would be great. Then you'll have a much easier time decorating your cake. You won't be fighting with it. And of course, if we had more time, we would be able to do even a better job. But you will at home, I'm sure. And then we have a comb that we use to comb the sides of the cake. You can actually even use a serrated knife. You don't have to have any special tools. Again, just go around to make an impression around the side of your cake. And it takes off some of the buttercream, but that's fine. There's still plenty of buttercream in there. And we'll smooth off the top. And now we want to make it pretty. So we have our circles. So I usually start with the biggest one, maybe overlap another one. And then we'll put our leaves on first and give them a little tilt. There we go. And a little buttercream in the middle for the rose to hang on to. And then we did a couple strawberry flowers or roses, or however you want to describe them. And we'll just pipe the bottom to give it a border. And then I think we've done a really good job making this a beautiful cake. And our cakes in the oven are almost done. So they do take a good 25, maybe 35 minutes to bake, depending upon which size pan you use. So I'm just using a plain round tip and just doing a plain little border around the outside of the cake. And if you decide that you want to start using different cake tips and so on, you don't really need a lot. You can just get a couple ones that you like the most, and those are the ones that you'll use over and over again. So here we have our beautiful white velvet cake with our strawberry and our fondant rose and fondant decoration. And I have put some glitter on that one. If you like glitter, you can certainly use that. Cake decorating is very personal, and you can make it as crazy, as fancy as you like. You could put circles around the outside of the cake as well in the fondant. You could put pieces of strawberry around the outside as well. So this is the time when you just use your own imagination and just have an enjoyment when you're baking, because that's what it's all about. And you know you're going to eat something that's delicious and your family's going to love it. So I'm Diane from Diane's Patisserie. Give me a call if you have any questions, 609-560-4111, or go to my website, dianespatisserie.com. Share anything that you've made with us. Send us pictures. We'd love to see what you're doing. We'd love to hear your comments. So I hope you had a great time watching us make our Italian meringue buttercream, our red velvet cake, and soon we're going to be working on some specialty French cookies, madeleines, macaroons, palmier, pave. I hope to see you soon. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.